Donald Trump is hitting the campaign trail hard in New England today. The billionaire is holding a rally in Vermont, which his campaign says will be packed to capacity.
And just a week into 2016, Trump has engaged in several heated battles with rivals, including Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton and her husband, the former president. USA Today's senior political reporter Heidi Przybyla is with us from Washington. And Heidi, you wrote a really interesting article about Trump's tactic, or at least for a short period of time so far. We don't know if we'll come back to it, but his tactic of attacking Bill Clinton on some of his indiscretions that he's had in the past. And in your article, you say, listen, Republican women aren't in favor of this. At least some of them aren't.
That's right. No doubt that Trump supporters really want to have this relitigated and that this is red meat for Trump's base. What I sought to investigate was, what about everyone else? What about the rest of the GOP? What about the women voters who aren't diehard Trump supporters? And what I found in talking to strategists and those voters is that they do not want to see a retread of this. And it's not because they want to help Hillary Clinton in any way. On the contrary, they think it's just bad strategy. First of all, anyone who remembers the whole episode knows that the independent counsel's office under Ken Starr spent about $40 million investigating Bill Clinton's sex life. They don't think, from a strategic standpoint, that Donald Trump's campaign is going to pull out anything new on this. So it's just going to be a retread of he said, she said. But secondly, and more importantly, it's the language that he's using. If you saw in the news interviews over the weekend, he's calling Hillary Clinton complicit and even an enabler in her husband's infidelities. This, for many women, no matter what your political stripe is, kind of crosses a line. And they are worried, these strategists, that for independent women and maybe even some Republican women who wouldn't otherwise be predisposed to vote Democratic, this kind of rhetoric could really push them over the line, especially if Trump keeps banging this drum, which obviously this helps him in a primary. So that's the problem.
Heidi, in your article, you also talk about this gender gap and Republican anxiety that, a Trump candidacy could serve to exacerbate that gender gap. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Right. Well, Elaine, there are a few data points that become very relevant here. So I went back and looked at historical Gallup data of Hillary Clinton's approval ratings, favorability ratings over the lifetime of her service in the public eye. And guess what? There were a couple of spikes. One was when she was Secretary of State. She became more of an apolitical figure. But the other one was when she was going through this whole trauma with Monica Lewinsky. The story broke in January of 1998. If you look at her approval ratings the month before, it broke to the year after, her approval ratings jumped about 10 points. So there you have proof in the pudding that these scandals actually made people a little bit more sympathetic to her. And secondly, I spoke with a Republican strategist who has a whole consulting company dedicated to message testing to women voters. She's a Republican consultant. And she said, even before Donald Trump came onto the scene, we were worried that Republicans in a primary race would get in over their skis on this issue of the Clintons' past. And we came to believe very strongly from poll testing this and message testing this in surveys that this would be a political, quote, minefield for the Republican Party with women voters. It's just not something they want retreaded, and it actually backfires because it makes a lot of women more sympathetic to her.
And you sort of alluded to the idea that this type of attack is working for Trump now, but in terms of the impact on the Republican Party long term, there's a definite concern.
Right. And for what I heard from some of these women, too, because I actually went out and talked to actual voters as well, is that they believe that this fits a narrative about Trump that they've seen from really the beginning of this race in terms of some of his comments about women, starting with the Fox News debate and his implications that the host Megyn Kelly was hormonal and making comments on Carly Fiorina's face. And so they're already predisposed to feel that he's going over the line with some of his comments. And so this just kind of plays into that. And of course, if he's the nominee, then it becomes a much bigger problem. But even if he isn't, the Democrats are pretty much poised to use anything that Donald Trump has said against whomever the nominee is in the Republican Party.
Really interesting article.
Yeah, it is.
Heidi Przybyla from USA Today. Thank you so much.